Well, good morning, everybody. Nice to see so many of you here so early in the morning. It's nice of you to make the effort and get out. But come in, sir, please do, and come and join us. Yeah. Yes. Thanks for joining us today. For those of you that don't know, my name's Steve Jordan. I'm the editor of the Mover magazine. And everything that we do today in the seminar theatre is going to be represented in the Mover magazine over the next coming months, and we're also videoing it. So if you would like to have a recap on anything that is said at any time, then you can always go back. And we hope you enjoy the presentation. I hope you come back to some of the other ones during the day as well. The first session today is all about the future, which is always really exciting. It's always nice to know what's going to happen in the future, even though nobody really knows. Who better to tell you about it than the CEO of the Self-Storage Association, Rennie.
Thank you, Steve. All right. Oh, yay. So I'm going to talk about the future of self-storage. And the reason I'm saying this essentially is just in terms of future-proofing your business. So like Steve says, we can never predict the future. We can take a good guess at it. But the self-storage industry is going through a fair degree of change, which I'm going to talk about in this presentation. And I think it's really important that if you're thinking of building a new store, getting into the industry, you really need to think about the changes that are happening in terms of future-proofing your business. Because these self-storage stores tend to last for 30, 40 years. So you want to make sure what you're doing now is going to kind of last moving forward to the future. So really, what's driving all this change? And I do genuinely believe that the self-storage industry at the moment is going through an unprecedented level of change. So if you look at the stores that were built by Big Yellow and some of the other big companies 20 or 30 years ago, those stores are still operating now, largely speaking exactly the same way they were built the first time. They've had very little capex done to them. They might have had a new floor coating put down or something like that. But in terms of technology, what they are, what they do, maybe a bit of an upgrade in security cameras, something like that. But basically, they are the same stores with the same technology that they had 30 years ago. What we're seeing now are changes in technology that are really driving the way we do self-storage, and we're seeing huge changes in the way people interact with self-storage, in terms of security, in terms of all these different things. The technology is changing the stores. So a store that was built 30 years ago is not going to stack up in 10 years' time, and a store that is built now may not also stack up in 10 years' time if it hasn't adapted to these changes in technology. And it's going to be really important to see also how the customers change drives in technology as well, because some of these changes are not just being driven by the operators, but they're being driven by the customers, because the customers are changing the way they interact with self-storage and the broader retail industry generally. So I think the other big important thing to remember is self-storage is definitely differentiating. So it's still a relatively new industry. It's only been going in this country for around about 30 years with any degree of size. But we are certainly getting to the point now where the customers are starting to realize that self-storage isn't just an empty box. There are lots of different types of self-storage. So like we've got up here, we've got container storage, we've got purpose-built storage, we've got micro storage, but there is definitely differentiation in the industry, and the customers are understanding the difference between one store and the other, and different stores attract different customers, etc., etc. So we're definitely getting this differentiation in the industry, and it's being done essentially to suit customers' needs, but also to suit the kind of land developments and things like that we have moving forward. So that's important. I'm going to talk about that a bit later on as well. But like I said, we're also definitely seeing how customers interact with self-storage stores changing. So, we are seeing far less sales being done over the counter. Even just as little as 4 or 5 years ago, pre-COVID, 60 or 70% of the self-storage sales were done over the counter in the store. Now it's close, in some stores it's none because they're fully automated, but even on the industry average, it's down to about 35 to 40% of contracts are actually signed over the counter. The rest of them are all done completely online. So we're getting more and more customers that don't actually see the staff members when they walk into the store, because they've done the whole transaction online, they've got their access codes, they've then come in after hours, moved their stuff in, and they never had that face-to-face interaction that they used to have before. We're also seeing heaps more usage of apps, because again, everything's being app-driven, so the customers are interacting with the stores on the app. In some cases, they're opening their units up with the app. Like I've got here, signing the contract online. We're seeing live chat being more important on websites in terms of customers asking questions, because that's one of the other things about self-storage. A lot of the customers don't really understand the product, so they want to be able to ask someone a question, but they're not in the store to ask that question. So this is where the live chat's really becoming useful in terms of kind of talking customers through the process process and interacting with them. But we are definitely seeing a huge shift in terms of online interaction with the stores, and the members need to the operators, need to kind of deal with that. And the other thing at the top there, of course, is ChatGPT and AI, and how's AI influencing the industry. We haven't seen a lot of AI in self-storage at the moment, but it is starting to creep in. If you talk to Canovus, who are on the stand up here, they've got a brand new kind of chat bot that's deliberately built for self-storage. So it's an AI chat bot that's been trained on all the self-storage questions and all this kind of thing, and that's been starting to be rolled out now as well. But how's this AI going to be influencing the industry going forward? So in terms of what the futures look like, I also just want to show you a bit video before we go forward to what we're actually doing now. So in terms of robotics, there's a whole lot of really cool stuff coming out in robotics as well. And this is a store actually in Singapore, which is basically not just fully automated, but it's fully robotic. And they've basically designed this store to maximize their lettable area. Singapore land's really, really expensive. So rather than have all the units kind of laid out with nice little corridors and then for people to go to, basically people come in, they scan themselves in, and our little GoBots here basically go out, pick up the unit and bring it to the customer. And as you can see, they've got 4 or 5 or 6 of these GoBots kind of running around. It means all the units can all be kind of stacked up and absolutely maximizing the net lettable area. They get about 20% more net lettable area out of the store doing it this way. The unit gets delivered to the customer still locks it, unlocks it, still has the only access to the key and all the rest of it, but they open it up, and there it is to put their stuff in, and then when they're finished with it, the little GoBot takes it back to its little store and puts it away. And this is in store in Singapore, has been running for about 18 months now, so this is not the future, this is now. Now this kind of operation is not going to work for everybody. I'm not saying this is the future of self-storage, but I'm just showing you the kind of things that are being done out there now at the moment. And they've actually upgraded this system now, so it's actually running on facial recognition. So basically when you walk into the store, it scans your face, and as soon as you've walked in the store, it starts sending the robot out to get the bot, so that your unit is basically in the little bay almost as soon as you get there, because it knows who you are as soon as you walk in the door. And this is the kind of technology we've got in there now, and this is why I say technology is changing what self-storage is going to look like. Now, you are not going to get 600 of these stores in the UK in the next few years, but you will definitely get something like that moving forward in terms of the technology that's out there now. So, what will a self-storage store look like in 10 years' time? Well, I'll ask my little AI bot to draw me a self-storage in 10 years' time, and this is what they came up with. I'm not sure if they have any idea what self-storage is in the AI bot, but he's come up with a half-decent model. I kind of like the idea of the solar cells and things like that. But I think ultimately, what will a self-storage store look like in 10 years' time? It's not going to look fundamentally different from the outside. It's going to be what's inside it that's going to be different. I think we are still definitely going to have mega stores in prime locations. So we're still going to have the big brands building these big stores in London, Birmingham, Manchester, Paris, these kind of places in big locations, 1,000 odd plus units, lots of capital investment, huge profile, building their brand, and being a standout store. You are definitely going to continue to get more of these, but you're probably not going to get quite as many as we were building 5 or 10 years ago. Just mainly in terms of access to land, but also in terms of micro stores, which I'm going to talk about further. But we're definitely not going to see the death of mega stores, which some people have predicted. But I think you will definitely see more mega stores built a bit like this in terms of more architecturally designed, architecturally appealing, rather than just kind of the big orange boxes. We're seeing more of these stores like this big yellow one here, which kind of looks a bit pretty. It's had a bit of work done in architecture. And let's be fair, that's not just because Big Yellow want to do that, it's because the planners are kind of saying your buildings look ugly, we want to make them look better. Or we're in a zone which has got this kind of beautiful feel about it, and we want you to match that feel, so we want you to put some kind of rusty wall on it or fit in the heritage of the area and things like that. So I think we'll see these big mega stores kind of looking different rather than just kind of cookie cutter roll out of the boxes. We are definitely going to see the continue of the containerized storage industry. Containerized storage in the UK is already quite big. It's been growing quite significantly, but we're going to definitely see container stores of all sizes. So you can see here, this is kind of a large one. We've already got container stores of about 1,500 containers out there, but I think we're going to see more of those. And we're also going to see more very small container stores kind of popping up. And I think we are definitely in the phase now where container stores are no longer container stores, they're external storage stores. And the reason I say that is because we've now got the same way a lot of the valuers talk about self-storage buildings. They talk about 3rd generation, 4th generation self-storage buildings. The 1st generation with these kind of ones in the back of industrial blocks with, not a lot of security and what was built up. Then we kind of went up to second gen, which were main roads. Then we went up to third gen, which had all this alternate usage. Fourth gen now is with all the full solar and all the rest of it. I think we're now getting first, second, and third gen in self-storage, external storage. So we've got container storage, that's fine. This is our kind of first gen self-storage. Typically just a whole lot of containers, maybe some hard stand, maybe some gravel road, just all kind of racked up. You know, if we're lucky, they're all the same color and they're all from the same place, but they're not always that pretty either. And that's our kind of first gen external storage. Our second gen external storage are these kind of pop-down units. You might see them over here with USC, lots of other manufacturers. Janus have got some as well, but they're not just a typical container. They look a bit prettier. They've got multiple unit sizes as well, so you can use kind of smaller units in there. They look a bit tidier, a little bit polished up, and they're a kind of second gen container storage, and they attract, not surprisingly, a more premium price than our first gen container stores, just because, and they tend to go into slightly better locations. But again, these are completely portable. They pop up. You can pop them down as often as you want. Obviously, one of the advantages of container stores is you fill it up as you go. So rather than having to build a big multi-million-dollar building and kit it out, you know, level by level, you get to bring in 10 containers, 20 containers, 40 containers, as many as you need, which again is appealing for these kind of models. But we're now also seeing what I call third-gen self-storage containers. And this is a site in the UK. This is by Ready Steady Store, who have actually got purpose-built self-storage as well. And these are all containers. And, you know, containers where they've actually put some roller doors on them or some fancy doors on them. They've double stacked them, but it looks, I mean, look at it. Looks great. It's a kind of a big difference from that, isn't it? But it's essentially the same stuff. They're still shipping containers. They've just been kind of done up in a different way. And again, attracting a much higher value, a much higher rental load. So we are definitely getting differentiation in the container market, and that will continue. You will see more really cool, innovative ways of using containers going forward, but you will also still see these kind of, you know, cheaper end of the market container prices. The other big change we're seeing in the industry at the moment are microsites. So these microsites are internal self-storage sites, but they are tiny. They can be 5 units, 10 units, 15 units. And they're using that technology again. So they're using the fact that they're automated and unmanned. So you get in there using your phone or a PIN code or whatever else. Once you're in the building, there's 5 or 6 units, you get your stuff out and out you go. There's no staff on site, there's no offices. All these pictures here are all from a place in Austria, a place called Storebox in Austria that is doing this to the nth degree. They've got about 120 of these stores. You can see them. We've got them sitting in retail, in old residential, you know, old supermarkets. Basically, if they find an empty bit of space anywhere on the high street, they will go to planning and they will try and put self-storage into it. And in Austria, they can do that. A lot of these are in the main cities in Austria. The planning laws kind of allow them to do that a bit easier over here. But we are starting to see that over here now in the UK. People exploring the idea of putting these microsites, particularly in places like London, where you can't get self-storage right in the middle of London, but you can potentially put them in these kind of microsites. And the technology allows you to do that completely unmanned. They have a security guy or a cleaner comes around every day or two just to check on them, but the customers just go in and out. And like I said, as little as 5 units in one of these stores, but you could set up 40 or 50 of them in an area and completely flood the area. So I think you're definitely going to see more of these microsites popping up in the future. It's a completely different model that the technology allows. And it gets us into self-storage where we haven't been able to get to before. If you were here yesterday, I talked about the fact that self-storage is very much a supply-driven market. It's not the fact that we don't have the demand, it's the fact that we don't have the sites to build and we can't find the places to put it. So these microsites just open up an entirely new market in terms of where you can put self-storage. The other thing we're seeing huge changes in terms of the future of storage is security. So we have had an uptick in criminal activity in self-storage in the last 2 or 3 years. So the idea of kind of using a PIN code or even a fob to get into your self-storage store is just not good enough anymore. It's just not secure enough. I mean, really nobody uses PIN codes anymore. Everything's about 2-factor authentication or facial recognition or biometrics or whatever. The idea of a PIN code is just, it's too easy to skim, it's too easy to copy. Even with fobs, you can go into Amazon and for about 80 quid you can buy a fob copier that'll copy just about every fob in the UK. So, you know, you can just get a fob, get a blank, copy it. Skimmers, micro cameras, all these kind of things are being used by criminals to kind of overcome PIN codes and traditional access systems. So we're definitely moving to 2-factor access control. So this is a Bearbox one. Again, Bearbox are exhibiting here today. You can have a chat to them about it. This is a really simple one. The fob basically activates the PIN code, and then you've got the PIN code on top of that, but they've also got mobile phone access. They've got it on a QR code. You can get it text to your phone. So it's all becoming very phone-based. I think this is what we're at the now, but certainly in the future, it's all going to be app and phone-based. It's going to be two-factor authentication on your phone. Could even be facial recognition on your phone, maybe even where you just put your phone up to the face, it recognises you, and then you access the store. But we're definitely not going to be seeing kind of PIN codes, fobs and things like that. We're going to see much tighter access control. Oh, the other thing we're seeing, and again, Janice are here today, they'll tell you about this kind of stuff, electronic locks. So electronic locks is a huge revolution in self-storage because it means no longer are we putting these padlocks on the locks, we're putting these electronic locks in, and these electronic locks primarily are activated by your mobile phone. It also means you can pass control onto other people. So it means if I want my sister to come in and pick up my surfboard for me, I can basically give her access for an hour and say, hey, come in between 10 and 11, you'll be good, get the surfboard out. I can see she's come in, taken the surfboard out, relock it again, she can't get back in again later on. Yeah, you can it's also obviously ideal for commercial customers because they can give it to their staff, their sales reps, things like that to go in and out of the unit, get goods in and out. Gives you crazy good data because the operator knows exactly how often that unit's being used, who's using it, whether they're sharing the codes, all this kind of stuff, which is really useful in terms of marketing, but also in terms of store development. But it's a new technology, and what we're seeing is more and more small independent sites are putting these locks in. We haven't seen them being used at scale by the large operators yet, but the large operators have a conundrum because if they start putting these into their stores, if they have to retrofit them against all their stores, that is a massive cost. So none of them have kind of done that yet, but we have seen it in Sweden. We've seen a store in Sweden, I think it had 32 different stores, and they've retrofitted the entire portfolio with electronic locks. And we are definitely seeing more of these electronic locks creeping into new stores. Not so much with retrofitting yet, but the technology is now advanced so that there's lots of retrofitting options available, and I do think we're going to see retrofitting going forward. More importantly, these electronic locks are going to be driven not just from the self-storage industry, but they're going to be driven by the customer, is my personal belief. And some will disagree with this, but my personal belief is that I think padlocks and keys will be the way of CDs in the not-too-distant future because we're already seeing it. It's all in the tourism industry, most the Airbnbs, the holiday accommodations, you all open them up with a phone or a two-factor authentication. Hilton hotels, I can go into a Hilton hotel, completely check in online, open it up with my phone. I can hire a car, open it up with my phone. How long is it going to be before somebody comes up with a front door and they're knocking on your door going, hey, you got this front door, but I'm going to replace it with this really cool front door that looks amazing. Not only that, it's got an electronic lock so that when you come in with your shopping, your hands are full, just bump it open and it's going to open for you because it's going to know it's you. You know, and just the same way Ringo's transformed the way we look through holes, someone's going to transform the way everybody opens a door. And in that case, what are you going to have a key for? Why would you have a key for a padlock in a self-storage unit? It's just weird, you know. So these electronic locks are going to transform the way things are going forward, not just in self-storage. It's only a matter of time. Again, not going to happen this year, not going to happen next year. 10 years, very, very likely, I would say. So really think about it. Now, the trick with this, of course, is electronic locks are new technology. Do you buy them now? Do you wait? Will they get better? Will they get cheaper? This is the challenge with any technology. When do you jump in? When do you take the commitment? But they are coming, and they will be a big part of the industry. Also, CCTV. CCTV has been a huge part of the industry for a long time. CCTV cameras are getting a lot cheaper, so we're seeing more of them. But it's not just about CCTV cameraing now, it's about these guys, DSOC and others, it's about monitoring. There's no point having pretty pictures of your criminals stealing your stuff. What you want is you want a way of stopping them stealing the stuff in the first place. So we're seeing a big shift in terms of technology. In the past, we had all these CCTV cameras. We had beautiful screens that the customers could see. Oh, look, all these CCTV cameras. Oh, there's someone putting this stuff in storage. Isn't that pretty? But, you know, that's great. Looks good. It's a great show. But like I said, it tends to only take photos of people stealing their goods. When you start using a monitoring service, the monitoring service actually identify the problems before they happen. If they've got tannoy systems, they can talk to the criminals or the customers and say, excuse me, sir, is there a reason you're looking over the top of that unit? You know, you do realise your unit's on the third floor and you're on the ground floor. Is there a problem here? You know, and there's different ways they can interact. Am I quoting you right, Rob? Is that what you're saying when you're out there talking to him? But yeah, it's really about proactive CCTV, proactive security generally. So the stores will be much more secure and they'll have much more proactive security rather than reactive security moving forward. Okay, AI is also a big part of this as well. AI and security monitoring will get better and better and better. So part of the problem with security monitoring, obviously, is these guys actually don't have 60,000 TV screens where they're watching every single camera. They're trying to work out which cameras to watch at the right times. And one of the challenges with self-storage is that unlike a lot of businesses with security, it's dead easy because at 10 o'clock they close the shutters. Anybody that's in the store, they're bad. They shouldn't be in the store. The shutter's closed, it's bad. Self-storage doesn't work that way because we've got customers that come in and out, sometimes 24/7. So the trick is to identify who's a bad customer and who's a good customer. And AI will do a lot of that for you. You know, the AI will get better and better and better at identifying who's a good customer, who's a bad customer. The algorithms will work better, and we'll have much more technology and proactive security, largely speaking because of AI. I touched on facial recognition before. Again, personal belief is that facial recognition will become much more common in society, the same way number plate recognition is at the moment, in the UK in particular. I just think over time, more and more facial recognition is going to come in. We're already getting it on phones, we're already getting it on bank IDs. People will become more comfortable with taking facial recognition, and you'll probably see facial recognition creeping into security and self-storage as well, potentially in access control, definitely in terms of IDs. I think already in retail in the UK, there is a system in place where I think Boots and some of the co-ops are trialling at the moment, where they've basically got a database of known shoplifters, a facial recognition database of known shoplifters, and when you walk into the store takes a photo of you, runs it against the database. If you ping on the database, it pings the manager, and the manager then knows you're a potential shoplifter. Make sure you keep an eye on this person, follow them around, watch them on CCTV, all that kind of stuff. That is active now in the UK, and it's only a matter of time before that becomes more common in different industries, including self-storage. I also think AI is a big thing, and there's a lot of talk about AI, but I think AI will be a much bigger part of operations in self-storage going forwards because it's all about data. And self-storage has a lot of data, but we don't use it very well. AI has the ability to do a much better job of it and use it really, really well. So I just want to show you a quick video because this is actually how AI is being used right now in terms of self-storage. If it plays.
So here I'm just opening up a very simple Google browser, and I'm going to search my facility, Trojan Storage of Burbank, and I'm going to use the mapping feature. Now the business profile on the left shows up, and I'm going to use the nearby feature and search for self-storage. This is going to show me all the self-storages that are very close to my, again, Trojan Storage of Burbank facility. So I'm going to pick on one here. Let's pick on Public Storage. I'm going to open up their webpage, and as you can see, everything here, all their information. And in lieu of having to manually transcribe any of this, I'm just going to capture the URL, and I'm going to jump to my ChatGPT here, and I'm using the Scraper plugin, as I had mentioned before. You'll find that in the store. You simply type Scraper, and the first thing I'm going to type is using this URL, make a table of the unit sizes, standard pricing, promotional pricing, and any other features that may be relevant to me. And you can see right away, it pulls that information, it scrapes the entire page, and it immediately starts creating a table. Unit sizes, standard pricing, promotional pricing, even lists features and amenities, and it had it calculate dollar per square footage. Now, dollar per square footage is not listed on their site, but it can actually do the calculation for you. So in lieu of having to do this process over and over, in this next prompt, I actually just feed it several URLs at once. And I say, using these additional URLs, combine all the data into a single table listing the facility name, again, unit sizes, pricing, features and amenities, as well as the dollar per square footage. And you can see right away it goes straight to work. It's got a Glendale facility. It's pulled a North Hollywood facility, I believe, and also a Burbank facility as well.
This is all based on what you put in the prompt itself, right?
That is correct. So it's exactly what I asked for the prompt. So now this is not exactly what I wanted. I'm going to say combine all this data and sort by unit size. So again, when you're talking to these AI services, you truly are asking it a question as if you had an analyst in front of you. And so then it's going to rework my table for me. It's going to combine all three facilities into this single table, mixing them together, but actually sorting it by the unit size. So now I have immediately, with very little effort, I have a full competitor analysis with what their pricing is, what their promo pricing is, what features, and again, have calculated that square footage. Next, I ask it to provide me the markdown code. So if you're in the code interpreter or advanced data analysis, it can provide you an Excel spreadsheet to download. You can't do that when you're in plugin mode. So by simply asking it for the markdown code, you can simply click a button and copy it and paste it right in to your Excel, and there is your entire data ready to go for analysis. So now I'm going to actually move forward and take that same markdown code and switch forms into the advanced data analysis, again, formerly of code interpreter. And I'm going to ask it, using this data, create me some charts and or graphs to help me better understand it. Now, of course, I can ask it very specific questions, or I can ask it, like I did here, just give me some charts to help me better understand. So it immediately goes to work and loads in, again, for those programmers out there, loads in the pandas library, and this is going to allow it to do advanced data analysis. And it's looking to create me a bar chart, a scatter plot, and a pie chart right out of the gate, which again is simply amazing that in very little time. So boom, there is my first one. This is my bar chart where it's going to be comparing standard versus promotional pricing.
So it keeps going on after that. But you get the idea, basically, how they've basically used the AI to scrape all the data, get all the competitor analysis. That was a job that used to take him hours that now takes him minutes. Now, not only that, we're going... what's interesting is that we've seen operators now that have gone the next step on that. So what they've done is they've got all that data, but they've actually combined that with their own sales inquiry data, their own conversion data, and they've gone in and said, okay, this is what my competitors have done. This is what my business has done during that time. Which of my competitors made a difference? What happened when the competitor's price went up to my prices? What are the influences that cross-reference? And they're actually finding out how much influence their competitors actually have on their own inquiries, on their own pricing. And they're finding out, but maybe the competitor down the road that they thought was a big influence on them actually has no influence on them, because when they cut their prices, there was no impact or very little impact on their own inquiries or their own conversions. And it's really using that data. We've also seen operators that have got all their call data, and they get their call data because their call data is run through a voice over internet procedure. They can basically get a recording of all the calls. So they then turn that recording into a text transcript of all the calls, and they load that into the AI with the sales data. And they say, okay, here are all the call transcripts, here are all the sales, here's all the length of sale, here's all the discount codes. Tell me, look for some patterns for me. And they start, and the AI goes through it all and looks at it and goes, well, okay, not only was this the best salesperson, but these are the words that they were using that related to the best sales technique and the best conversions. And these are the words that didn't work so well. And then they go back through it and look at it and go, okay, how can we revise our sales technique on that? And this is what we're doing now. What we're going to see AI doing in the future is AI is going to personalize everything. So you will not get a generic quote, you will not get a generic email, you will not get a generic message, because they'll be using the AI to basically customize things based on all the information they know about you. So AI is definitely going to make a difference to the storage industry in terms of how they interact with their customers. Another thing is self-storage awareness is definitely going to increase. At the moment, we still have pretty low self-storage awareness in the UK, but it's growing and growing and growing. It's getting to the point now where it's at a tipping point in the respect that we're getting saturation pretty much across the whole country. So we've got self-storage stores just about everywhere, and awareness is picking up. The more users we have, the more people talk about it. So more people will know and understand self-storage, and that's going to lead us to more lifestyle customers as well. So that's going to lead us to more customers that are staying for a whole year, 3 years, 5 years, 6 years, their entire lives, rather than the short-term customers we're having at the moment. So awareness is definitely going to increase. Also, this is what I said, there's definitely going to be more lifestyle customers. So what lifestyle customers, self-storage customers fall into two very clear groups. We have short-term customers and long-term customers. Most self-storage customers come because they are a short-term customer. They've got a need, a personal need, a divorce, a death in the family, entering a relationship, having a baby, going on a holiday, moving house, all these kind of things. And they come in and they say, I need self-storage for 3 months. Great, that's fine, we'll sign you up, we'll put you on a deal. And almost all of them stay more than 3 months or 4 months or however long they stay, because they always need it longer. But a good portion of them also end up staying for 6 years, 7 years, because the short-term need passes, but then they go, well, self-storage is actually really useful. I actually really don't want to bring that stuff back into my house. I don't need to. I can access it here. Not only that, I could put something else in there and I can take stuffing out. And they become what we call lifestyle customers. And those lifestyle customers will stay for years and years and years. And if you look at the American industry, which is 30 or 40 years ahead of us, it's built on lifestyle customers. You know, they have families that have self-storage units and they just have the unit and their family uses it for whatever they want and it's just there. You know, and we're moving towards that, which means we need less new customers because we have more long-term customers, we have less churn, and it's a real positive for the industry. But I think we are definitely going to get more lifestyle customers using self-storage, which is going to change the demographic of the customer base. I've touched on this already. Data will be crucial and customers' journeys will be personalized. And I can't understate this enough. You know, everything will be personalized. And it will be personalized based on all the data we know on the customer. And the data we know on the customer will grow because there will be more digital interaction. So somebody will make an inquiry on the website and they will get a customized detail thing that will give them a link to all the things they need to know about that particular problem. So if they've come to us because they're renovating a house, they'll not only get a storage quote, they'll get all this information about local people that can help them renovate them, interesting information that might help them, completely customized, all tailored, and the pricing and everything else will be completely customized to that person because it's all going to be data driven. And we're seeing it moving that way now, but in 10 years' time, that's where it will be. It will be 100% data-driven, and everything will be infinitely personalized. You've seen the sci-fi movies where they walk into the store and suddenly a little hologram pops up and says, "Hi, Rennie, how are those shoes you bought last week? Are they fitting you well?" and all the rest of it. Not saying we're necessarily going to be there, but we're definitely going to be going on that track because that's what people are going to be expecting, and that's what they're going to be wanting out of service. But in saying this, I've talked a lot about technology, I've talked a lot about AI and all the rest of it. Self-storage is still a personalized business. It's going to need people, and a good management team is still going to be essential for your self-storage business. You know, the AIs and the computers and the data, they are a great part of it, but they need someone to run it. They need someone to understand it. And self-storage is still a personalized topic in terms of the fact that people are storing this stuff that's important to them, that means something to them. They want to feel that it's secure, that it's safe. They want to feel that they've got a relationship with the store, and that comes down to people. So a good management team is going to be super essential, and it's going to be super essential in terms of managing the data, but it's also going to be super essential in terms of kind of interacting with the customers moving forward. So it's not all about the technology. People are still super important. The other thing is we are definitely going to have more stores by 2033. We're going to have more stores of all different types. We're going to have more container stores. We're going to have more mega stores and all the rest of it. My pick is we will have 50% more stores in the next 10 years. Why do I say that? Because we've been pretty much on 5% growth a year for the past 4 or 5 years. I can't see how that's going to change. So I think we're going to, in 10 years' time, 5 by 10, 50%. If not more. So we are definitely going to have a significantly bigger industry. Now, we will probably won't have 50% more space because a lot of those stores will be smaller. If I include the micro stores, we're probably going to have 100% more stores. So I think we're definitely going to have more stores, probably going to have about 40% more space, but we're going to have a much, much, much bigger industry, but still nowhere near as big as the US, right? The US is still 9 times bigger than us now. The US will continue to grow to agree. We are never going to get to where the US is, but we will still have significant growth, probably at least 50%. What we're also going to see is, there we go, a growing price gap. And this is where I think staff and management come into play here. So self-storage will remain profitable. It's a great business. There's no reason to think it wouldn't remain profitable. But what we're going to see is a growing price gap in the respect that operators that are doing things well, using the data well, getting really good locations, getting really innovative with their marketing, they're going to demand much higher prices than operators that don't. When I come back to external storage, we've got those 3 tiers of storage I was talking about. The old container sites are not going to get anywhere near as much revenue as these new modern external storage sites with all the security and all the rest of it. So as the industry grows, the market will differentiate. The same way we've got M&Ss and Aldis, we've got Virgins and British Airways and all the different subjects, we will get that in self-storage. So you will definitely have customers that are looking for the cheap option. We'll have customers looking for the expensive option. We'll have customers looking for high security. We'll have customers looking for high interaction. And that will amount for a big differentiation in prices. So some operators will definitely be charging a lot more than others. The industry will definitely be remaining profitable, no doubt about it. Some of you might recognize this from Breaking Bad, self-storage unit full of cash, yes? We open these up all the time for those who don't self-storage. When we open the units up to sell them, we often find them full of cash. It's a real pain to get rid of, really. It's just a really difficult part of the business. So yeah, the industry is going to remain profitable. Why does it remain profitable? Because it's got three fundamental features. First of all, it's property-based. Property-based is great. Over the long term, property acquires in value. So that's why people like it. Second thing is it's got a great operational cash flow. So it's not just property-based, it's got an operational cash flow underneath it. A lot of operators that got into this industry 20 or 30 years ago got into it thinking they would flip these properties in 10 years' time and get rid of them. They haven't, because the operational cash flow makes it worth keeping. Until that property has really escalated in value, the operational cash flow just keeps ticking away. And keeps the business going. The third huge factor about self-storage is it has a diversified customer base. So not only does it have an operational cash flow, that operational cash flow isn't reliant on an anchor tenant or a big customer or anything like that. It has a very diversified customer base. We have customers from as big as M&S down to people that are, single mothers and retail users. If the market falls in one area, it gets picked up in another. So the fact is that different people use self-storage for different periods of time, different lifestyle changes. So that's what makes it versatile to changes in the economy, changes in the political system, and all the rest of it. So it's no doubt going to remain profitable, and it will outscore most other property-based industries as it has in the past. But it won't work for everybody. Because as the industry gets bigger, it's going to get more competitive. And like I said before, those price gaps are going to move. So at the moment, we have very few failures in self-storage. In 10 years' time, we will be having failures in self-storage because we'll have operators that have set their stores up, that haven't adapted to technological change, that have put them in bad areas, that have bad management systems, and they will not be able to compete with the operators that are doing things really well. And it makes sense. If the industry grows, it's going to obviously become more competitive. And when an industry becomes more competitive, there's always people that fall out from the bottom end. So it's just going to mean you're going to have to do it better. Steve said to me today when we started this session, we're going to do a build it and they will come session because there was only 3 people sitting here. It's clearly worked because I've got more than 3. But self-storage has been a little bit of build it and they will come too. There are definitely people that have just gone, I've got no idea what I'm doing, but it's going to build the damn thing and it's going to work. And in a lot of cases, it did. It did work because self-storage is a bit like that. It's young and it's new. You're not going to be able to have that attitude in 10 years' time. We will not be in a build it and come. We will not be in a supply-driven market. We will be in a demand-driven market. So you'll have to do your research, set your store up, make it work. Now, it's not massively hard, but you got to make it work. You can't expect just to stick a store in the ground, stick some containers on a bit of land and make it work. It's going to take more than that. So you're going to have to think about all the things we've talked about to make it happen. So, questions?
I can see a massive growth in the micro market because if you think about it logically, we've got Deliveroo at the moment, and you could see millennials or younger people in the future ordering their meal. It's in a mini store down in the basement of their whatever it is building, and they pick it up. You could also see it being used, I think, for people who travel. So I usually will buy a few new shirts or whatever. I'll shove them in a trolley thing, take it around the other end. Whereas this, you could have it sitting at destination for you in your hotel in the mini store. You take it out, and you don't carry your bag. So for traveling, I think it'd be great. I think it's huge.
I'm not sure that was a question. I thought that was the end of my presentation, but that's all right. But no, you're right. It's and we are already seeing there's places in Germany that are setting self-storage stores, little micro sites up in train stations, places like that. Exactly right. Hit your traveling market. Yep. Yeah. So I think the micro storage is definitely going to change the way the industry looks. And opens up a whole lot of different options. It's usually fairly short term though. That's the other thing about micro storage. It does have a higher churn. You don't usually get particularly long term customers in there, but it's still new. That might change over time. But it's definitely going to open up sites that we haven't seen before. Any other questions? If anybody's interested, almost all the images in this were generated by AI, other than the pictures of the stores. Yeah. So
Rennie, can I ask you a question?
You can.
Just one, in case anybody just sort of needs a bit of thinking time. You've talked about a lot of things today, and I wonder if these people have self-stores now, is there one thing or is there a priority of things that you think that they should be doing now? What's the first thing that they should do if they're going to try and keep up with the technology?
I think definitely the first thing you should be doing is security now. I think you should be definitely looking at your security, making your security proactive. And Rob hasn't paid me to say that. But that's my honest truth. I think at the moment security is very pressing, and the changes can be made pretty quickly without a huge amount of cost, and the technology's pretty evolved. So I don't think I think the AI in terms of monitoring and stuff like that will get better, but that's going to be done by Rob and those guys rather than you as an operator. So I think invest in the technology now in terms of the security, because it's going to give you returns straight away, and it's pretty much capped out. I think the next thing you need to think about is data, because if you're not collecting your data, if you don't have a good management system, if you're not kind of linking it in, if you haven't got a single point of data, for instance, like if you've currently got your data being stored in your accounting system, and your data being stored on your website, and your data being stored in your management system, and they're not all linked together, you're never going to be able to do any of this stuff. So start thinking now about how your data is gathered and held, so that will set you up so that when you want to start doing AI or stuff like that, you can do that, because you can't do it without data.
Okay.
So I'd say that's the first two. I think the electronic locks thing is just something you've got to make a call on yourself. If you're building a new site, honestly, if I was building a new site, I would probably be looking at putting electronic locks in it, because I think the technology is pretty decent as it is now. But others would say wait a bit, see what the technology improves, see if the costs come down. In terms if you've got an existing store, retrofitting them, I think the technology is probably going to get better and probably cheaper. So I wouldn't necessarily retrofit now. But this is just a personal preference. It's up to you really to make the call on. It's like any technology. When do you jump into it, and when do you don't? But you don't want to be too late. Because customers will start driving that.
Good, thank you.
All right.
I think we're done.
Cool.
Rennie, thank you very much indeed. Rennie Schaefer. Our next session is going to start in 15 minutes' time. Now, just before you go, I just want to tell you there is one topic that I've been writing about in my magazine more than anything else in the last 2 years, and that is sustainability. Now, if you don't think that's important, then I think you've got a problem, because if you don't treat it seriously, you will be out of business in a very short time. So if you'd like to find out a bit more about that, come back in 15 minutes. Thank you.